वेलकम ऑल ऑफ यू. ज्ञानदीपच्या या PYQ सिरीजमध्ये मी महापारी प्रल्हाद तुमच्या सगळ्यांचे स्वागत करतो. लेट्स बिगिन द सिरीज ऑफ PYQ इन द इथिक्स इन गव्हर्नन्स. So we already have learned that in the ethics we have to focus on the definition if there is any kind of ethical terms mentioned in the question. Then we have to explain or somewhat related to the give the as much as possible the examples in the public administration or from the philosophers or the social reformers, thinkers, etc., which we have already studied or read in the newspaper, etc. So these two things have to be kept in the mind while writing the answer, that is definition or the term explanation and the examples. Let's begin the today's question. The will to power exists. So first we have to understand the question properly. The will to power. The will means our will, right? So will to power. So willingness to power, that is, it is all about the power exists, but it can be tamed and be guided by the rationality and the principles of the moral duty. So simple, this is the simple statement. This is not the question. This is the simple statement. But statement says that everyone or many of us has the will of power, will to power. Means we have to hold the power, but that power should comes with the rationality and moral duty. But it is tamed. Tamed means like destroy, or it is somewhat misguided. Now the question begins from here. Examine this statement in this context of the international relations. So we have to understand that how in the IR means many countries. IR means all about the relation between the countries, among the countries. So the will of this will is the will of the nation. So will of the nation to have the power, like USA have the will that USA should be the sole superpower. So will to power exists, but it is tamed by the and guided by the rationality and principles of moral duty. So let's examine this. Now we have to link it with the syllabus. Next step. Now we know that there is a syllabus, public and civil service values and ethics in public administration. In that we have the one sub point, that is ethical issues in international relations. Last time, if you scroll down the playlist, you will observe that we have already discussed about the international funding in terms of international aid. Now it's time to discuss the ethical issues in IR. So once we understand the question, the will to power exists, but it can. What we have to focus? Actually, question is examine the ethics in international relations. Now, body, analyze the statement in various perspectives with respect to international relation. We have to study or write the ethicality of the international relation. But the perspective is all about the power, moral duty, etc. So let's see the introduction. The statement, you can only mention that the statements highlights the tension between the pursuit of the power and need for the ethical and moral consideration in the international. So statement talks about the relation between the power and rationality along with moral duty. The question talks about it. So what is the ethicality of the power? I have already told that in the IR we have to consider that in terms of aid, the giver and in the receiver. Barabar? Now, in terms of the ethics in IR, we have to consider here the power seeker and here the rationality and moral duty. And this is the diplomacy and foreign policy. These are the principles in the diplomacy and the foreign policy. So, and this is all about power seeking, means strategic, military, financial, etc. So, from this perspective, we get the very much discussion points or the writing arguments. So, let's see. The first thing, power and the diplomacy. India's foreign policy approach is based on rationality and the moral duty. So how we get that this idea? Ki India's फॉरेन पॉलिसी अप्रोच जो आहे इट इज बेस्ड ऑन मॉरल ड्युटी अँड रॅशनॅलिटी. फॉर एक्झाम्पल, we can write here example. I have already mentioned it. India's role as a mediator in international disputes, like disputes among the Korean countries, right? So at the during of the Korean War, India has provide a role as a mediator. Then peace process between the separatists, between the India and the Tamil Nadu and the Sri Lanka. So will to power, but there is at the same time there is a rationality and the sense of moral duty. Our rationality and morality also reflects from the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. These are the examples you should be talked about, Vasudhaivakam. And another example is that vaccine Maitri. You know all about this. You have already studied in your IR that the vaccine Maitri is the initiative where India is providing the vaccine to the most of the countries in the world at the same time, and when the countries of the West, that is North developed countries, are pursuing the vaccine nationalism. So they are holding the vaccine, but India is distributing the vaccine. So this is the moral duty. Then second, non-alignment movement. It is a clear-cut reflection that the India doesn't want to fight or to take one side during the Cold War. India wanted peace, right? And this is the moral duty reflected in. This is the rationality, right? So we are already mentioning the principles of moral duty and the international. Now I emphasize the importance of non-alignment with the major powers of any bloc, so that the mutual respect, coexistence, respect to the sovereignty will be maintained. Then next, global governance and the human rights. So India is always talked about the multilateralism. Multilateralism means काय? Multi means multiple and lateralism means institutions. So we have to focus on the global governance. You all know that which are the different organizations that are the global governing organization, like United Nations, be it the United Nations General Assembly and United Nations Security Council. Then there is a financial governance organization like World Bank, IMF. Then there is trade related WTO, then WHO, UNESCO. So these are the some form of world governing organization, including the UNFCCC. So UN and its associated bodies are the specialized agencies, are the some form of global governance bodies. Even United Nations Human Rights Commission is also such a body. So India's stand on global governance and human rights reflects its the ability to seek the power at the same time pursuing the rationality and the responsibility. India's engagement in the global governance institutions like United Nations reflects commitment to the rationality and the moral duty. India has actively participated in initiative promoting the human rights, sustainable development, peacekeeping operations, showcasing its efforts to guide the power in accordance with the moral principle. So India is also talking about the UNSC's permanent membership. And you can write this example as well, right? So UN permanent membership, on the basis of what? India is the largest democracy. This is the moral principle. India is not saying that we are the largest military, one of the largest military power in the world, so give us the grant us the permanent membership. India is saying that, look, we are the largest democracy in the world. We are the largest contributor to the peacekeeping. Actually, what is the function of UNSC is to keep the peace. But we are the largest contributor. But through the UNSC permanency, India was too willing to seek power, but with the moral duty and the rationality. Are you getting it? So these are the example. At the same time, about the human rights, there is an allegation that India is attempting to suppress the minority voice in the Kashmir region by violating the human rights of the people. But India is also highlighting that at the global institutions or global platforms that this is not the case through the moral principles. By helping out the countries during the tsunami, humanitarian assistance, then during the war conflicts like Ukraine, Gaza conflict, etc. Even in the Afghanistan as well. Then strategic partnership. Now look at the rationality here. Rationality is what? Irrational choice. So US and China are fighting, but India is providing rationality by maintaining the relation with the both the countries and attempting to establish a one form of peace. For example, Ukraine-Russia war. Clearly, China has taken Russian side and US has taken Ukraine side, but India has taken middle way. Though India is supporting Russia through the purchasing the fuel to support the war, but at the same time, it is also supporting the Ukraine and asking Russia to cease the war. So these are the mediator role. India's strategic partnership with various countries, US, Japan, Australia, illustrate the balancing of power. So India wants to balance the power, particularly in the Indo-Pacific. With the rationality and the shared value, this partnership aim to foster the economic cooperation, security, regional stability, peace, demonstrating how power can be guided by the rationality and the principle. So what is the objective of the look at the India-US strategic partnership. How it begins? It starts with the nuclear cooperation, right? Then it goes to the defense partnership, right? And now it comes to the technological partnership, technological cooperation, and now the next logical steps is economic cooperation. Maybe free trade agreement, a small mini free trade agreement will be signed. Economic partnership. So, and the primary aim is to maintain the peace and regional stability. So this is what the India is talking about, the rationality and moral duty to maintain the peace and stability in the world through the strategic partnerships. Then next, conflict resolution. India is always played a middle role or the mediator role in resolving the conflict. For example, at the same time, resolving the conflict, India is also offer the medium of the talks, dialogues, diplomacy, etc. For example, the Taliban and Afghan government. Then India has facilitated dialogue and the reconciliation to address the conflicts, recognizing the importance of peaceful solution. And biggest example is the G20 declaration. India is able to harness the G20 declaration because which Indonesia is unable to, because through G20 declaration, India ensures that Russia, China, USA, which are now divided, comes to the one single conclusion of G20 declaration. So consensusly G20 declaration adopted, it shows that how carefully India has maneuvered their diplomacy. And thus the conclusion. So to summarize, I can say through the international ethics, we can say that the power, diplomacy, global governance, human rights, strategic partnership, conflict resolution, these are the ethical principles which we should be considered in the international relations. Then conclusion, overall, the tension between the pursuit of the power and ethical and moral consideration is defining feature of the international relation, because international relation is all about seeking the power over another country, but by achieving this through the moral duty and ethical principle, is there will be always tension between them. This is our conclusion, and thus India is carefully achieving this with the rationality and moral duty through the initiatives or guided by the principles like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This could be the conclusion. That's all for the today. Thank you.